Now we've got this economist, Cottarelli, who's been asked to form a government. The euro's lost its highs for the day. It's unchanged. Is this a euro positive, euro neutral, euro negative? How are we to read the latest developments out of Italy, David?
I think that's a very interesting question, I would say. But indeed, the politics probably doesn't play the major role right now when we look at euro-dollar. It's really the interest rate differentials, which has not played out in the last few months. This is driving right now the dollar stronger, the euro lower. And politics is sometimes an accelerator, like we have seen in the last few days when really this populist government became more and more likely. And now there's some volatility, but the direction of the euro is probably still a bit more down from here. Why? Well, because the interest rates are so much higher in the dollar area, and some fear factor are just adding into a momentum play, into a direction which has established much earlier than really the formation of the Italian government.
David, is there a floor for euro-dollar? I mean, it was only on February the 1st, the euro closed at 125.10. That was a three-year high. Look at us today. We're at 116.54. Would you say there's a floor? And if so, what's the level?
Well, of course, you can argue with some technical indicators, which is really not our main source of information or how we drive research. So we look rather, when it comes to the short-term moves, to 3 months moves, to the interest rate differentials and how to translate that in an exchange rate. And here, indeed, we were looking at levels of 115, 111. These are levels which are consistent with the current interest rate advantage of the US versus the Eurozone. So these are floor levels, if you like, when we really look at 3 months at a longer-term horizon.
Why are interest rate differentials suddenly coming into play, David, when, you know, before April, while the dollar, especially coming into February, while the dollar was sliding, the same interest rate differentials were part of the narrative? Why now is it so important when it seemingly wasn't so when we had the, you know, dollar's decline through February and into April?
Yeah, that was probably, it's more the anomaly that it hasn't been important for the exchange than it's a rule. So we can ask ourselves why this episode had been so special, and definitely there are a number of contributions. One is probably, or the most likely, or the most powerful one to from our perspective is indeed that lots of central banks went again into euros, were building up positions which they had reduced during the euro crisis. Also institutional investors were building up positions. So the euro had been at some point neglected investment in the past because of the experience with the euro crisis. These had been rebuilt, and for a short episode, so for this since October, basically interest rate differentials didn't play out. We think over the longer period of time, they do actually lead exchange rate moves, and we're watching them very closely.
And David, on interest rate differentials, does the politics, both in Italy and Spain, does the fact that the data highlights that the Eurozone economy isn't as strong as it was last year? Yes, it was at a best performance in a decade. Does that suggest the ECB won't normalise policy as quick as maybe we thought a few months ago?
Well, I would say probably the expectations are not really for a quick normalization anyway, but of course, one explanation why the Eurozone economy slows down right now is the appreciation of the euro we have seen in the past 12 months. So in this respect, the exchange rate does the role by distributing growth away from the Eurozone to the US. Now, probably we will see in the next 12 months a different behavior, some growth being distributed from the US again in the Eurozone. And then is probably the time really for the ECB indeed to start normalizing rates. When you ask me when this will happen, not before 2019, so somewhere in middle of 2019. Until then, there's lots of time to go, and until then, we see probably some more euro weakness because this interest rate differential is not narrowing, and probably also because of this political headwinds we're seeing right now from Italy.